So I'm going to call the meeting to order. This is the Historic Preservation Commission regular meeting, September 10th, 2024. And Drew, do we have a quorum? Could you take a roll?
You do. Member Church?
Here.
Member Nickel?
Here.
Member Tanner?
Here.
Chair Bergen, do you have a quorum, sir?
We do. Okay, great. So the first thing we need to do on our agenda tonight is have a consideration of the June 12th minutes. I hope all of you have had a chance to read them. Anybody have any changes or alterations? So can I have a motion?
I will move to accept the minutes of the June 12th, 2024 regular meeting.
And a second?
Second.
And any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any dissent? No? We have minutes. Okay. Next, we get to the demolition review for 619 Westfield Avenue.
Yeah.
And I understand that
There's
you're...
non-agenda items and visitors. I know I think you're here for one of the petition items.
Right.
I'm sorry, I skipped an item. Wait just a second. I skipped item number 3.
Oh, no.
So we always ask for non-agenda items. Are there any visitors here? Is there anybody who would like to make any comments about items that are not on the agenda? And Drew, is anybody attending electronically?
No, sir.
So we don't have anybody attending, we don't have anybody wishing to speak extemporaneously. So now we can move to the 619 Garfield Avenue. And I understand the petitioner, David Piatek, is here?
Yes, sir. Do you want me to stand over here?
Yeah, this will be fine, yes.
Sure.
Our cameraman says yes.
Okay.
So, Mr. Piatek, can you tell us a little bit about what your plans are for the house?
Yes, so I'll give you a copy of the plat map that's currently exists.
Okay.
So what the idea with the house is that we're going to upgrade the features of the property. One thing is that we need to put in a sub pump into the property because there isn't one, so we have to re-crack the basement, re-pour the bottom foundation. And there's also leakage from the outside into the house, so we also have to do drain tile around the entire property. Chimney's going to be removed because it's leaking, and the whole first attic and second roof are both leaking into the property. We also need to replace the drain, the sewage line, because it is cracked. And we also have to replace the water line that's going into the property because it's too small. So obviously a lot of things have been upgraded. Need updating that. We've also recently, well, when I purchased the property, we updated the power to 200 amp, and we're also going to be expanding the garage because currently the garage it just fits one vehicle. And so we want to expand it to be a little bit wider, and we're also putting in 2 EV stations into that's why we upgraded to 200 amps, so you can actually do that. So I just don't know what the setback requirements are for the property, so I just need to grab what that is if for the garage piece. And then I know that our sunroom right now must have been added after the original purchase. Maybe you guys might know since you guys visited the property. But it is also in bad condition. All the windows are going to be replaced because in the wintertime, the wind just goes through the entire house. The siding is going to be replaced as well because I don't know if you've seen the place, but it's all warped. So we're replacing it with hardy siding, new windows, hardy siding, new roof.
Wow.
It's going to be, all the landscaping is going to be ripped out completely. So the deck that's in back, all warped. We have little kids, so we can't so it's going to be, the back deck's going to be warped. All the concrete's going to be removed off the property. The driveway was going to be re-poured. And then there's the deck that's here, that's been removed. We've cleared a lot. We've already cleared 11 trees from the property. We have 2 more trees to clear. They're against the house. And if you go into the house, you'll see that the foundation is cracked up across the entire basement, plus the garage. It's just so, let me see what other notes are here. And that's the whole house. Yes. So yeah, all the flagstones gonna be removed, like I mentioned, deck's gonna be removed. Any questions for me?
In our write-up, it says that this is going, you think this is going to cost $90,000.
Yes.
You think you can do that much work for $90,000?
We have room for wiggle, but we have, we have a lot of connections.
Are you gonna trench around the house?
We got a lot of connections.
You got,
My dad used to do construction.
gotcha. That helps.
Are you gonna trench around the outside of the house to replace the drain tile?
There is no drain now. So we're gonna do the whole, so once the porch area is expanded with for the like the larger sunroom, and then we expand the garage, or we demolish the garage, and we expand the footprint of the garage, then at that point, we're gonna do the whole, around the entire property. Yes.
Wow.
So you're not talking about total demolition?
No.
Yeah, we're talking about.
But they said that anything at 50% or
A
more.
lip sync of 50%.
Yeah, inside, yeah.
Yeah, inside.
Wow, this sounds like a tremendous amount of work. It's a lot more than we did in the write-up, so.
So, because, yeah, we just like wrapped up our architect stuff too, and then like, by the time people came out to the property, they're like, this needs to, we need to bring it up to like code, like livable.
Okay. Can you charge 2 EV cars and run air conditioning units of 200 amps? That sounds like you need some more electricity also.
The electrician will, but they said that there should be no issues at 200 amp. That's, at 100 amps you're gonna have problems, at 200 yes, because anything over 200 is commercial.
Interesting.
Maybe like a restaurant would have more, but we, I believe, have the max for what we have.
So you said you're going to be replacing the siding. Will you leave the original brick then?
Yes.
Just. And the garage, is that a flat roof garage?
It is a flat roof.
Not a later period?
It is.
And will you be following that same structure, or will you make it more in keeping with the house?
So
What you're gonna do?
that's a good question. So so we were thinking we're gonna, when we expanded, just to do the slanted roof.
Okay.
But the architect advised against that. They said that you should have at least some type of a pitch.
Mhm.
So that's what they're recommending. So where the garage is, it wouldn't have like a pitch like this, it would be a very small pitch. But the problem we have right now is with water, drainage from the property.
Sure.
So we're going to divert the water back to the front of the property, and then we're gonna create like the top.
French.
Yeah, so we can actually drain to the thing, 'cause otherwise it's just, neighbors are,
Right.
Jim is not happy,
Mm-hmm.
because the
Would be a
water.
good neighbor.
Yeah, we're gonna be a good neighbor, so we have to also re-level the entire property, because it's just not level. And then because those big trees that were there before didn't help either, so from the back, or from one side to the other, there's a huge slope.
Yeah, you could do the same pitch that this part.
That's correct,
is.
but just not as big.
Not as,
It'll just be a slighter pitch, and then we'll still catch the water and bring everything forward.
but I mean, the same angle would,
Oh, I see,
yeah, have the same angle as here,
well,
obviously
yeah.
it's smaller.
There's windows on the
Oh,
side,
okay.
where the
Oh, gotcha,
bathroom window
gotcha.
is,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
the
that's
two.
problematic.
Yeah. Yeah, and we're also gonna be adding a bathroom to the first floor, there isn't one right now, so it's like for my parents coming by, so we'll do that. Obviously, new kitchen, new floors, everything's gonna be, and we're putting a fireplace in, but we're not doing like I don't know what it's called, but it's not like a wood fireplace, we're just doing like a gas fireplace, with just like
Okay,
a
so it
small
won't
one.
be, you won't need a chimney,
No.
it'll be a ventless something.
Oh, like, yeah, like one with like a small bivette or something like that.
So in your plans, you say you're gonna open up the first floor, have an open floor plan. And for those of us who know the house, there's a huge chimney right smack in the middle of the floor plan. And is that chimney that fireplace, is that gonna go away?
It's going back there.
Yeah, I see. You can take it.
We're moving it onto the outside of the property. The chimney is, it's all cracked on the inside, we had it inspected. It's not even usable. And then it leaks from the top. So we're just gonna have it straight removed. And that's why a new roof is gonna be put on that side of the property. And we're also doing vaulted ceilings
Wow.
as well.
It's gonna be lovely.
Yeah.
That's the idea, because I don't know, because I know it's this, architect will finish the plans next week, then we have to resubmit them, and then the next committee's gonna approve, right? They're gonna be like, no, you can't do anything, I'm like, I don't know. So we'll see.
Well, that's what we're concerned about also. It sounds like there's a tremendous amount of work going on here.
Yeah.
So we're concerned that there's a lot of changes. Are you gonna change the outside color of the house? It's a dark brown now.
Yeah, that's it.
Dark brown,
Probably changing it to charcoal color.
charcoal color.
Not good look against that brick. And then the gray, and the roof will be probably like a green color. I'm not an designer, but someone will help us. My wife's friend.
Are you in the home now?
Yeah.
So you're gonna do this while you're in it?
No, we're moving now.
Okay.
Oh, that's no way.
Whoa.
You have children. You're
No, I
right.
got a 6-month-old and a 2.5-year-old. So, but I mean, the one's already going to the preschool at the what's it called? Not preschool, but it's
At the
a
park
rec
district?
center, the park district. Actually, pretty cool, but yeah. Yeah, so we're gonna move to my parents or my wife's parents in McKinley. Project should take about 4 months to complete.
And you're hoping to start when?
As soon as we get the permit. We have everything lined up for contractors and everything.
Well, we're always pleased when the house remains and stays.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
You see, oh, like the actual property itself.
Yeah.
We're just expanding a little with the garage.
Well, it sounds like it's on life support now. It sounds like it really needs an infusion.
You guys can come by and check it out yourself.
Yeah.
Okay, comments? Anybody have any further comments?
I'm just really pleased that you are maintaining the facade of the home and that it will continue to look as it has, just spiffed up and updated.
Yeah.
And then you'll have a wonderful space inside.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and for those of us who knew tinctures, it's so nice on lives to bring this house back to life.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
thank you.
Of course.
I spent many an evening there, so nice. So, okay, so we have all our comments, any other? No?
No, actually, my comment would be, it sounds like a fantastic project, so your heart and soul is going into it, plus
Yes.
money, so.
Oh, yeah, it's gonna be a lot, so. Okay.
So are we thinking we're ready to make a decision? Do we have any comments anybody wants to make? All right. So we have 3 choices here. They're done in the sort of blue, yellow, and red on page 2 of the petition. So we can have approval, which is to terminate the review. We can have a continuation with no further discussion. And we can have a continuation with further discussion. And so I'm wondering, what would everybody like to do this evening?
I will happily make a motion to terminate the review.
Okay. Any comments on that? Do we have a second? for that?
Second.
A second? Okay. If we have a comment, no further comments, then let's take a roll call vote for this. We do a voice vote on that? Okay, well, good. All in favor?
Aye.
Any objections? No? You have your plan for you.
Last question, the sign that's on in front of my house?
It'll come down.
Oh, it'll come down. Because I know people always want to be like, what's that? They go in the house, I'm like, I'm not done with the house. Because I'm not gonna get it, so, okay.
The little Lake Bluff ghost will come and take it.
Thank you, thanks for putting it up.
All right, thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you guys, have a good day.
Night.
Welcome.
Okay, that brings us to the second item on our agenda, which is the house at 1776 Short Acres Drive. And I believe we have a person here to speak to us.
Good evening, Chairman Bergman, and members of the Historic Preservation Commission. My name is Christopher Canning, and I represent the owner of 1776 Shore Acres Drive. For the record, my office is at 1000 Skokie Boulevard in Wilmette. I know you've had a chance to read the staff report, the demolition letter of intent prepared by Healy Rice, the architect of the project. And I believe you've all seen the house more recently than I've seen the house, because I believe all of you have been out to the property. Healy had matters in both Wilmette and Kenilworth tonight. I had matters in Wilmette and Lake Bluff tonight. I just took care of the Wilmette one, so I'm here with you. So that's why I'm stepping in for Healy. In the packet on page 88, the chairman had some questions about Healy's background. And so I asked Healy for her background, and she says she's been a licensed architect since 1992 and started her own practice in 1997. She focuses on residential remodeling and new construction work after my initial career in commercial construction project management. She's worked all over the North Shore and won preservation awards in Kenilworth and Winnetka. Her practice is known for sensitive additions and remodeling projects that pay respect to the original architecture and new homes that fit into the context of the locale. She has a Bachelor of Science in Architectural Studies from the University of Illinois in Urbana, class of 1984. So that you had asked, that was in the memo. Mr. O'Donnell grew up on the North Shore. He has been a member of Shore Acres since for the last 30 years. And for any of you who've been in that area, or any of you who might be golfers, he explained to me that all these years he was struck by the beauty of the location, but he was also always told, hey, if there's ever a house that comes up, you really ought to try to buy it. So over the decades, when homes come up, he looked at it, never had the chance, until 2022, when he bought 1765 Shore Acres. So on that house, he worked with Healy, extensively renovated the home, and he thought that was going to be his Shore Acres dream home. And if you know 1765, he opened it up so there would be a large window facing towards the golf course. And he thought, this is it, this is my house. Yet, in 2023, the two properties across the street, 1750 and 1776, came for sale. And he toured the house, and he looked at the house and saw years of neglect, flood damage, animal damage, and what he thought were unfortunate additions to the original home. But like you, I assume when you toured, when he walked out back, he saw the golf course. And now it was, this is a house on a golf course. That's a really nice house across the street, but I want a house right here. And so that was what sold him, is that view is what made him consider buying 1776. Now, if you've looked at the listing sheets, you see the house was sold as is. And that means it is what it is. No better, no worse. And so the listing price was also quite modest for a parcel adjacent to the golf course. In fact, in looking at the research materials you included, if you remember, the construction price for the original home is about $70,000. Well, if you take that 1938 and convert it to 2023 dollars, that construction price comes out to be about $1.4 million. So the property here was sold for less than that, was listed for that and sold for less than that. So since 1938, as we mentioned, the house has undergone a number of modifications, and in Healy's opinion and in Mr. O'Donnell's opinion, the additions were for the better. An example that Healy pointed out, and Mr. O'Donnell pointed out, that there was an original patio that was enclosed to make a big room, and they thought that was very unfortunate. As you saw, even if Mr. O'Donnell wanted to restore the home, which he does not, Healy believes, and working with her contractor, believes that the cost to renovate the home would be in a range of $2.5 to $3 million. But the cost to build new would be in a range of $1.5 to $2 million. So it's Healy's belief and Mr. O'Donnell's belief, and I share the same belief, the house that exists today does not meet village codes. It is unlikely the village would issue a certificate of occupancy for the building as it exists today. I saw the home back when I was first retained after they've gone in for initial meeting with the planning and zoning committee, and I was like, wow, this is rough. I haven't been up to Shore Acres in many years. I used to be with Winston Strawn, and we used to have our golf outings up there because Frederick Winston, one of his sons, I believe, is one of the original people who had one of the lots in the Shore Acres subdivision. So I'm familiar with the course, but not this area. Wow, it was a lot. On July 8th, 2024, Healy filed a demolition letter of intent. No plans have been prepared. So unlike the case before where the gentleman talked about the plans, no plans have been prepared because there's been a lingering issue that I think Mr. Irvin, village attorney, Mr. Schuster, and I believe resolved last week that 1750 and 1776 are two buildable lots as opposed to one lot. And if that's important, I can go into it, but I believe we resolved that. So in terms of what the next steps are is, assuming the demolition permit is approved, Healy and Mr. O'Donnell plan to have a sale for any items anyone wants from inside or outside of the building. After that, she plans to use a deconstruction firm she has used in the past recycling or Blue Earth, and their process has been to harvest what they can to sell or responsibly dispose it. Then she expects to submit plans for a much smaller home than what is there right now, but one that takes advantage of the views, particularly the southwest of the U towards the golf course. So in closing, it is the opinion of Mr. O'Donnell and Healy that the home has been historically compromised by the neglect of the former owners and structurally compromised by weather damage and animal damage, and it's reached a point of where it's not reasonable to spend the large sums of money we discussed earlier to return it to its original grandeur. Therefore, we request that the Commission make a positive vote to terminate the demolition review of 1776 Shore Acres. And thank you for your consideration. Thank you for your time in going out and meeting with Healy and seeing it firsthand.
Well, good. We'll come back to you. Is there anybody else who would like to make any statements?
Yes, I'm the next door neighbor at 1765. I'm also the across the street neighbor from 1776. So one of my questions is, so if this is his new dream house, what is he going to do with 1765?
He hasn't told me.
Okay, so that's an if. We don't know. Now, are you trying to divide this into two properties? Because that was floated back in February, and it's been one estate for, what, since the 30s? So now you're trying to make it two properties? Yes or no?
It is two properties.
So, okay.
Okay, so you're going to then divide this like 2-acre lot into what size properties?
No, it is two properties. 1750 is a property, and 1776 is another property.
Okay, but it's one estate, and it's been one estate for, what, 60, 70 years?
No. So I guess I have to go into this. So if you could hold on 1 second, let me go get my memo.
Okay.
Ms. Whatman, can you tell us your name for the
Oh,
record?
excuse me, yeah, okay. For the record, I am a neighbor, I am Carlotta Rotman. I have lived in Shore Acres for 32 years, and I've seen some significant changes, both in Lake Bluff and in Shore Acres over 32 years. And I don't think they've always been for the better, and so this is why I'm here tonight. I've seen a lot of great properties, what I think are beautiful properties in Lake Bluff, disappear. And, you know, there was a book years ago, Lost Chicago, that shows all these old mansions and things like that. I actually have a copy of this book. I wish someone had done a Lost Lake Bluff a few years ago, because I see that we're losing a lot of beautiful homes. And in Shore Acres, in the 32 years I have been there, there was a home that made it the cover of Better Homes and Gardens years ago. It was demolished. A new home was put in its place, and then of course the guy lost his job, so that was sold to someone new. I've seen other homes remodeled to the extent that you don't recognize them anymore. So it's just kind of the history of this house, the famous architects that were involved. I would hate to see this home go. Also, you know, there's been a David Adler home that was probably vacant for 12 years or so in Lake Forest. I think many of us are aware of that home on Green Bay Road. And it has been beautifully restored by the owners. And I think it's a showplace for Lake Forest. And I would just urge that we consider maybe other things rather than just demolishing this house.
All right. We'll ask Mr. Cannon to explain the two lots without taking us down every single real estate description.
Well, I can probably cut to the chase, as they say.
Okay.
The short answer is when it was annexed into the village, it was under separate ownership at that time. And
Okay.
it remains separate ownership to this day.
Oh, interesting.
When was it annexed?
Well, who were the owners? Who were the owners?
It was annexed on April 22nd, 1974.
Okay, so I'm just trying to get a sense of
Okay, yeah,
that.
so who were so it was under two different ownerships?
Yeah, if you would indulge me, but,
Yeah.
so the properties at issue, if you look at that, you see this is identified as lot
Yeah.
3. And so the properties began as lot 3 in the County Clerk's Shore Acres subdivision, located in unincorporated Lake County. And the original owner was G.B. Winston, I believe the son of Frederick Winston, the founder of Winston Strong. In 1935, Winston sold Lot 3 to John Simpson. Simpson built the house at 1776, and your research has documented all that. Paul H. Robinson, Simpson sold it to Alice Mayer Brown. Alice Mayer Brown, another firm, sold it to Robinson. On or about, hold
No,
on. On or about,
actually, just simplify it. We don't need,
well,
we don't need all of the details.
well, so
Robinson is the one that subdivides the lot.
So Robinson, Paul and Martha deed a portion of Lot 3 to Paul H. Robinson. And that creates 1750.
So they clean off the small piece of property. Sounds like to one of the children.
And that,
Yes.
no, there were separate owners over the years, but that's July 11th of 72. So since then, Paul H. Robinson and Martha conveyed their part to Martha. They conveyed it again to Martha. Martha conveyed it to herself. And in 03, the parcel 1776 was sold to John O'Donnell. So one parcel has always been in Martha Robinson's name or her trust, and the other one has been in Paul Robinson or Paul Robinson Incorporated, or the successor to Paul Robinson Incorporated. So those were the two sellers. So when it was marketed, it was explained that it was two lots, but if it fell under common ownership, it would become one lot. And so I believe when we first started this discussion, I don't know that the village had all the deeds that we had, and there was no subdivision other than the 1920 subdivision creating shore acres. So how your code defines lots of record is it could be a lot created by a subdivision or another recorded instrument. So what Paul Robinson did was another recorded instrument by creating another parcel and deeding it off. And that all happened before the annexation.
Clear as mud.
Yeah, I was gonna say, so it was all one estate. He gave part of it, his daughter and son-in-law lived in the separate property for a while, then they moved into the big house. But it was all, you know, the Robinson property all along. So you planning to make it two properties or what? No.
Two properties, stay as two properties because it has to stay as two properties.
Is it a plan to demolish the small cottage that's on the property?
That's a different ownership group, and they have no plans.
Oh, interesting.
Oh, who's some, who
Well,
owns
it has-
that?
It has to stay in It has to have two owners.
So who is the ownership?
Shore Acres LLC.
And who runs Shore Acres LLC?
That I don't have.
But it has nothing to do with the O'Donnells or with you.
It has nothing to do with John O'Donnell. I don't know who's in Shore Acres LLC.
You probably won't know, okay.
Yeah.
So that, all right.
Okay, so, again, I'm just speaking, I've seen so many properties in Lake Bluff over the years, and particularly in Shore Acres. When we moved there 32 years ago, it was primarily a wooded area. You didn't see your neighbors very much, and once a year, we all got together at a holiday party and had a great time, and everybody kind of stuck to themselves. And over the last few years, I've seen it kind of develop in the, what I might call Westlake Forest tradition, which I think is a lovely look. And if you live in Westlake Forest, I think it's a great place to be. But I've seen a lot of trees being taken down. I've seen it kind of suburbanized, if you will. And so the forest areas are kind of leaving the, I know I was told I have very high-grade natural areas because I've been a member of Open Lands. I've supported Open Lands for a number of years. And I think some of the newer people coming in have gone in another direction. And I just kind of see this as maybe more of the same. And so it's changing the character of the neighborhood, and I don't think for the better.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Okay. So, thank you, Mr. Robin, for your comments. We appreciate that. Do we have any questions, any comments?
One clarification point, there's a typo in the memo, the staff memo. The letter of intent regarding demolition was received on July 8th. The village code states the 90-day clock that begins on that date, which would be October 6th. Just to
Okay.
clarify, it's October 6th.
Okay.
And while I pointed those out, the two code sections on page 1, I believe the first one was section 15, and the second one was section 20.
Good. All right, so all of us have had an opportunity to go through the house and to take a look at it. You also have a great deal of information that was provided for you in the packet, outlining the architect, outlining Mr. Simpson, outlining Mr. Robinson. We have some significant architects, a significant architect here, some socially prominent people in town. Paul Robinson was the ambassador to Canada under the Reagan administration. We've gone through the house. Do we have any questions, any thoughts about the house at this point?
Chairperson,
Yes?
I have some questions.
Okay.
And so when you, when the estimate came out by the architect Healy,
Healy Rice, yes. And McDermott Construction.
okay. Did they, like when they were estimating the cost of building a new home, did they include in that the cost of demolition for all of the buildings on the lot?
I believe so. Not the 1750 lot, the 1776 lot. I believe so. I can't tell you that 100%, but I believe in an email string trying to get me up to speed, that came up.
So, not quite sure. And then, it stated in there that the structure is compromised, the mechanical structure as well as I think the structure of the home is compromised. Was there an actual engineering report then that showed that it was indeed compromised and how it was compromised or where?
I have not seen an engineering report. I believe that Healy contractor made that conclusion.
Okay. So do you know how it is compromised, like?
There was flood damage, there was animal damage. When I was on the property, it looked like it had been neglected for years. I was
Right.
stunned
Yeah.
that even he wanted to buy it. But by that point, it was too late. They're like, well, we own it. And I'm like, oh.
So
And,
if it was compromised, what was compromised?
well, downstairs, I know they said had a lot of mold from flooding. So like where the bar is, I believe that had a great deal of mold in that room. Because one of the questions I had was, there's a reference to the bar in materials, is that salvageable? And the response was, that might be something that we would, if someone wanted to come and buy it, certainly, but, you have to deal with what shape it's in right now. It's not in a pristine shape that it was 20 years ago. I think when the survey 16 years ago, when I think the survey was done.
So some mold? damage.
Yes.
Okay. And then, I guess, one question is, do you know if when the property was bought, if the present owner had any idea about the historic significance of this home, and the architect and the previous owners did he know about that when he decided to tear it down?
I know that it was listed as historic by the broker, and the buyer's broker also knew it was historic, but I believe all they knew was that Mr. Robinson had been ambassador to Canada, which is during President Reagan's first administration, which is a little bit ironic because where Mr. O'Donnell grew up, it's near a street in Winnetka called White Oak Lane. And White Oak Lane is where a gentleman named John Lewis lived. And the reason I tie that up is John Lewis became President Reagan's ambassador to Great Britain in his first term as well. And so when they came back from England, his wife, Mrs. Lewis, started a store in Winnetka for English goods called Eximius, and my mother went there. So, so the O'Donnells lived near an ambassador and now bought the house of another ambassador, all from President Reagan's first term.
So all in the family.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it was that's why it's stuck in their head, because they're like, oh, we knew the Lewises because they lived nearby. So that was what stuck in their head, not any architects or anything like that, just that it had been owned by an ambassador a long time ago.
That's all I have for now, Chair.
Okay.
Well, I hung out with you looking at the plans when we were touring the building. The blueprints were all out there, as well as blueprints for some of the additions that had been put on and so on and so forth. I was stunned at the prominence of not just the original architect, but other architects who contributed over the years to that building. And that gives me pause for demolition. I agree that the property is in really terrible shape, but there are parts of that property that I feel are worth saving, and I for one would like to spend more time studying this.
I should point out at this point, our mission for preservation is not looking at the condition of the house necessarily, if it is still structurally intact. We're not looking at the price or the cost of remodeling something. We look at the architectural integrity, we look at the provenance of the property, and we try and look at the background of both the social history and the architectural history. So not always necessarily, we always have a lot of questions about cost, because we're interested in it. We have to talk about costs and that part of the process, but that's not our main thrust of what we're trying to do. So I need to make sure that we all keep that sort of in the forefront here. So, Jeannie, you brought up the issue that we have a rather prominent architect who's designed the house. We have materials here that show that this is a fellow who seems to have had an extensive career. The Simpson connection is very close to him in that he designed the merchandise mart for Simpson's father, which is all part of the materials, and then went on and seemingly went on to remodel half the beautiful buildings in town, Museum of Science and Industry, the Behind Temple, other buildings like that. So we have an architect who seems to have a great deal of pedigree. Then we get to the David Adler work that's in the house, which I am independently trying to work with the Art Institute on in their records. The Art Institute has all of the David Adler drawings, and they are currently in the process of trying to inventory the drawings, which is a several-year-long process, because the David Adler drawing collection is some 9,000 drawings. So they're trying to figure out how to inventory all of that. But I am working with them, trying to ask if we can find out what David Adler work is in the house. Every time I have been in the house, I get the sense that there's more David Adler work in the house than we understand. It's quite possible that David Adler designed the cottage at 1750. If you look at the awning on the front of that building, it certainly has a certain amount of Adler-esque components to it. If that's the case, that's not part of our purview, at least for this go-round. But on the other hand, there's a fragment of drawings that we saw when we were in the house. That fragment shows David Adler clearly doing work in the central hallway in the house. I think that the library and possibly the additional office that are part of that house may have been done by David Adler also. Today, when I was in the master bedroom, when I was in the Madame's, when I was in the wife's bathroom, there are some indications there that there may be some Frances Elkins work in there. Frances Elkins is David Adler's sister and is an interior decorator of her own reputation. But not just the fact that she worked for her brother, but she also had her own reputation. A trip to Amazon will show you several books that are written about her work. So there's some information there that I very much want to try and understand with regards to the house before we move too far down the road with that. If there's David Adler work in the house, that I think requires a second level of review given his reputation. I think the work that Alfred Shaw has done is quite significant. It's a French eclectic style house, and I think there's a great many components to the house that are quite interesting and quite in the moment of, without getting too esoteric, quite in the moment of Louis XV's French architecture, as opposed to Louis XIV and Louis XVI. They all did things a little bit differently. So that's some of the thoughts that I have about what we're looking at. I haven't seen anything in the house that I thought was absolutely unrepairable. When I was down in the basement looking at the ventilating system and the heating system, there was indication that someone had been through all of that machinery down there in the last decade or so. You can see notations on all of the electrical boxes where people have gone through and annotated how they traced down the power and whatnot. When you see that happening in the house, that means somebody's working on it and checking out the circuitry and whatnot. I didn't notice any overpowering mold odors when I was there. I didn't see any evidence of mold. I did not see any black mold. I didn't see any green mold. I didn't see any of the other spectrum colors of molds. Letting my past career get in the way from working in insurance land, I have a fair amount of experience in looking at molds. If it's green or red mold, there are enormous problems. If it's black mold, it's probably stock cheap botrys, which is a typical common mold that everybody has under their kitchen sink. So I didn't see any problems of anything that I thought was desperately wrong with the house. Any other comments? I sort of spoke at my piece.
Yes, I went through it today, and so I'd read a lot of materials, and so I was really expecting to see, very frankly, more damage than I saw. However, in terms of looking at the house and going through, one room after another, that place is huge, of course. It seems like about the time we thought we were done, basically there were some other rooms to see. But I think there have been a lot of bad decisions made on that house too over the years. So that while it's got an architectural pedigree that's really absolutely outstanding, some of the changes that were made basically would need to be redone or undone, let's say. And that would be part of any restoration, if you will, would be to, if you had that orientation. And modernization too, in terms of kitchens and things like that. But even some of the flooring, that was put into the kitchen, things like that, for a house that basically was supposed to have a lot of character and whatever else, it was actually pretty poorly done. The maid's room upstairs, they put up a window that basically didn't fit anything, didn't even finish it off, type of thing. So there, and then even looking at the roof, which is, I'm not sure when that roof was put in, but that roof would have to be replaced. From a
I
distance.
think the roof was put in about 10 years ago maximum, so it's not that old, the roof is.
Right, and that's where a very bad decision was made in terms of what they did there. Because if you, it's a plastic tiles, if you will, that are made to look like slate.
Like slate, yeah, it looks like
But you
slate.
take a look at it, and they're curved. So somebody made a big mistake. So that in fairness to the buyer, the cost of upgrading it is going to be very high because you're going to have to start with the roof, all the siding. The siding looks like it might have 30 or 40 coats of paint on it, type of thing.
Any 70-year-old house.
Right. So you really have to redo that. So that my problem is that I've been working in my house and houses, if you will, for most of my life, so that I have more of an orientation towards what's involved in the cost and the emotion that's involved in terms of doing a true remodeling and upgrade. But I back up in terms of what the input I'm getting here and basically looking at the pedigree and the fact that we're the Historical Preservation Committee. Then if I look at that, okay, it's hard to imagine a house that would have a more interesting pedigree than what this has. So that, Paul, from that standpoint, I really feel as though this does look like a pretty interesting place.
I agree with you that this has social history and architectural history in spades. So, yeah.
Other comments? So, what I would like to do with this program is I would like to go through our criteria for designation. One of the things we have to do it says here that we have to examine whether the subject building meet the criteria for designation under the section for stating it as a landmark. And so I would like to take a few moments to go through the criteria for designation so that we have a better sense of where we are with all of this. And if we do that and get that on paper, I think everybody will have a clearer idea of what we're all thinking of and what we're looking at.
Mr. Chairman, do you mind if I sit down?
Yes, please. Please go ahead. I'm sorry. point out that these guidelines do not come out of thin air. They're not something that we have dreamed up in the village of Lake Bluff. These are generated by the National Park Service. They are used across the country. There are various different interpretations of meant, and Kenilworth, everybody has a slightly different interpretation of them. But this set of criteria for designation follows the national pattern. So I want to get that sort of on the record or out for everybody to get a sense of. So there are 3 different categories. There's about 5 or 6 categories per category, 5 or 6 items per category. And so I would like to go through and ask all of us our thoughts. So if we start out with general considerations. So under the purpose, the commission must find that at least one of the following criteria is applicable when weighing whether to recommend the feature be designated as a landmark. So under general considerations, the feature has significant character, interest, or value as part of the historic, aesthetic, cultural, or architectural characteristics of the village, state, of Illinois, or the United States. Do we think that this building has significant character, significant interest, or value as part of the cultural, or aesthetic, or architectural characteristics of the village?
No doubt.
Yes.
Okay. So, item 2, the feature is closely identified with a person or persons who significantly contributed to the development of the village, the state, or the United States.
Yes.
So, okay. The feature involves the notable efforts of, or the only known example of work by a master builder, designer, or architect, architectural firm, or artist, whose individual accomplishments have influenced the development of the village, the state, or the United States.
It's the only known example.
Well, it's not only the only known.
Or.
Or is the, oh, okay, sorry.
It's an either or
Yeah, yeah,
statement.
yeah,
So
okay.
yes, architect.
Okay?
Yes, yes.
Yes.
Okay. Unique location or singular physical characteristics of a feature make an established or familiar visual feature.
Oh, I think so.
Any objection? Okay. The activities associated with a feature make it a current or former focal point of reference in the village.
I believe so, yeah.
Okay. I can testify to the fact that Paul Robinson had many Republican-related rallies and events in this front yard.
I never went, I never was invited. I don't know. Missed that, but.
You didn't spend enough money, you didn't write a check. So what do we think about item 5? It's a current or former focal point of reference in the village.
Oh, yeah.
No? Okay. Item 6, the features of type is associated with the use once common but not rare, is a particularly fine or unique example of a utilitarian feature that possesses a high level of integrity or architectural significance. You think so?
Oh, yes.
Okay. The feature is yielded or is likely to yield historically significant information or even prehistoric data.
Probably not prehistoric, but yeah, historically significant information. I'm sure that further research would be quite
You think?
productive.
Lois, John, your thoughts?
Actually, no opinion on this one.
So, do we award that a yes or a no?
I would, yes, because you've got inquiries into the
Okay,
data archives.
all right.
Yeah.
We do have all of those prehistoric liquor bottles in the cabinet.
Forgot about that.
So, okay, getting on to the second set of questions, architectural significance. The feature represents certain distinguishing characteristics of architecture inherently valuable for the study of a time period, type of property, method of construction, or use of indigenous materials.
Yes.
Any disagreements there? Okay. Item 2, the feature embodies elements of design particular architectural style in terms of detail, material, and workmanship, which has resulted in little or no alteration to its original construction. So we have architectural style and detail and material.
I believe so. I believe so.
And then 4, the feature is one of the few remaining examples of a particular architectural style and has undergone little or no alteration since its original construction. I think the bones of the house are essentially intact.
I would agree that the bulk of the house, but some of the details are unusual.
Yeah. I tend to agree. All right. Item 5, the feature is, or is part of a contiguous grouping that has a sense of cohesiveness expressed through a similarity of style characteristics, time period, type of property, method of construction, or use of indigenous materials, and accents the architectural significance of an area.
Weren't a lot of the early buildings built up there built in the style to complement the clubhouse?
They were built on the same level of grandiosity, that's certainly true. The thing that intrigues me is the placement of what I call the string of pearls along the 10th fairway. And so starting at the Swift House closest to the, Swift House is the closest to the clubhouse, then you come around to our subject house, then you go up to what's called the Hibbert House, which is the 3rd house in that string, finally stretching all the way up to a Mediterranean-style house. You have 4 beautiful houses, all sitting on 2.5, 3-acre parcels, all looking southwest onto the green. This is all done in the 1930s. The earliest, I think, is 29, maybe at the very earliest, probably 1930. This house is done in 1935. And so I would think that this follows the contiguous grouping part of that question. The detail, item 6, the detail, material, and workmanship of a feature can be valued in and of themselves as reflective of or similar to the majority of other material visual elements in the area. So we can value the details, material, and workmanship of the house.
I don't agree with that.
No?
I was not impressed with the, a lot of the details in terms of even the choice of some of the materials and whatever else, even in the original house, so.
Okay. How about the rest of you?
There are a few things that stand out to me. I think the major one is this feature right here. What would you call that?
The oval shaped garden at the front of the house?
This formal garden that looks out onto the golf course that's on the southwest.
That's the piece with the circular opening.
Yes,
Opening.
exactly. I think that's just amazing. I think there are certainly that dining room is great.
Okay.
The bow window.
Multiple bow windows.
Yeah.
Okay. Lois, your thoughts?
Well, I certainly think that the detail of the original home is significant and reflects just the style of the home and fits in beautifully. I don't know about the quality of all the materials.
Okay. Yes or no? Like number 6, we think that the details and material can be valued in and of themselves. I tend to think that there's some beautiful details in the house. I agree with the dining room, certainly the library and the office, I think, are just very fine examples of beautiful interior.
Would agree with that.
All right, so if you'd agree with that, then I'll mark landscape, this may be difficult. The landscape is significant in its own right as a work of landscape architecture and not merely as a complementary setting for one or more structures or buildings. I haven't seen any indication of there being a landscape architect
Well,
involved.
except for this part here.
Okay.
This part here, because there, remember there were magnolia trees on either side of this semicircle. That must have at one time been quite a formal
Mhm.
garden area.
Are you guys, do you have in your mind's eye
I can't
the garden at the front of it?
Yeah,
The
I think the potential is spectacular, and at one time it probably was spectacular. Right now, of course, it really is a mess. But I think that the potential is there, and so I would say that the landscaping opportunities and probably the history basically are very significant.
Lois, your thoughts?
I don't really remember looking at the landscaping that closely in the back. I just remember how the house was set in the property for the vista view, and the trees all along the side framing that.
So are we in favor of the landscaping, or do we give it a pass?
I think there's certainly aspects of it.
Yeah, from a standpoint of potential and probably historical.
Yeah.
All right. So we mark it down as a yes. Then we get to our final grouping here. This is historic significance. We ask that the feature is an exceptional example of a historic or vernacular style, or is one of the few such remaining of its kind in the village. And if we talk about in the village, I don't think we have much French eclectic architecture in the village. We can ask the question, is it an exceptional example of a historic or vernacular style?
I think it's a beautiful example. I'm not sure if it's exceptional.
Okay.
You would be more qualified
Yes.
to weigh in on that than I.
So I tried not to be.
I know.
Here, so, okay, so is it an exceptional example of a historic style of a house? It's a pretty nice looking French vernacular house, and so I think we can agree that yes, it falls into that item number one. Item two, the feature has a strong association with the life or activities of a person or persons who significantly contributed to or participated in the historic cultural events of the United States, the state of Illinois, or the village.
Well, that's a slam dunk, isn't it?
So we get down to the ambassadors. The feature is associated with an organization or group, whether formal or informal, from which persons have significantly contributed to or participated in the historic or cultural events of the United States, the state of Illinois, or the village. So, do we have, can we call the Republican Party a part of that, the organization or group? Seeing how Mr. Robinson was one of Reagan's guys. How do we feel about that?
I think so.
No opinion here.
Okay. Lois, what's your thought?
No opinion.
No opinion. All right. Now let's put this down as a no. We have a few opinions. And seeing how we do have a debate going on this evening. The feature is, item 4, the feature is associated with a notable historic event. We don't know that anything national or statewide events occurred there. Okay, we haven't found anything in the materials. You haven't seen anything, so I think we can put that associated with an antiquated use due to technological or social advances. The only antiquated use I saw in there was the buzzer bells for summoning the servants. And not many of us have live-in servants anymore. I don't think that qualifies us for that, so I'll put that down. No. The feature is a monument or cemetery of a historic person or persons. And we can answer this in the negative quickly. So that takes us through all of the items, all the criteria for designation. I think we've decided that this is a house that is something that we want to take a closer look at. So at this point, what do you think we should do with this? I would like to get some more information about what it really costs to remodel this house. I would like to get some more information about the architects involved here.
Yes, I'd be happy to make a motion.
Any other discussion? Okay.
I move to continue the demolition review of 1776 Shore Acres Drive and continue to conduct the review at the next regular meeting of the commission.
Okay. Any second?
Second.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I would point out that the next regularly scheduled meeting falls outside of the 90-day review period.
Okay. Where does that put us?
Yes.
October 6th would be the 90 day, it's a Sunday, I believe. And the next regularly scheduled meeting would be October 9th, I believe, the second Wednesday.
Okay.
It's been very difficult to get a quorum thus far. Actually, I'm aware.
Sorely aware
So,
of that, yeah. So, do we want to ask that we try and hold a faster meeting in less time so that we make the time deadline? That closes down our ability to go out and gather information about this property. So,
Sure, I have a question. Do we have the option to extend, like to ask the village board for additional?
what happens if we can't meet until after October 6th?
You could ask the village board to extend the review period, the demo review, for an additional 30 days. That's the most under the ordinance that they could extend it. I don't know if the HPC is precluded from continuing to try to complete the record of the home outside of the, I don't think you are. Nothing stops you from doing that after the demo review period concludes.
Okay. But once the demo review period concludes, then they by right get a demolition permit.
Well, they haven't applied for one yet,
Okay.
but yes, that they would have satisfied the village's procedures with regards to demolition review.
Mhm. Okay. And so then if we provide more information about the pedigree of the house, they already have theoretically, they already have their permit, their demolition permit. So,
Which, to have the conversation,
Yeah.
maybe,
okay,
the village's ordinance allows for the demolition to take place, it's just more time. Right, at the end of the day, there's procedures in place to landmark the homes,
Mhm.
but only the owner has the ability to create a certified landmark, which the village would then control whether or not a demolition permit will be issued.
Doesn't sound like we're going down that road.
Doesn't appear.
Okay. So that puts us in a dilemma of wanting to take some more time to look at this property, but having planning issues of October 6th looming in front of us. So do we want to try and see if we can schedule a meeting before October 6th, on or before October 6th?
I wouldn't mind doing that.
Okay. I mean, this meeting is off cycle to our normal meetings because of our quorum issues and whatnot, so we want to try and do that.
That would seem appropriate.
Okay. So can we have, would it be possible to have a motion to, rather than continue the meeting to our next regularly scheduled meeting, to our next irregularly scheduled special meeting?
I would so move.
I will second.
Oh, great, council.
I will second.
So the other friction point is you have another meeting. It's before, what is the outcome of that meeting, other than you have time to study this more and do some more research?
Mhm.
At the end of the day, to request additional time from the board
Mhm.
is, I guess, of questionable value, given the owner's intentions.
Mhm. Well, we have, hope springs eternal. We have seen other situations where,
And the reason I bring it up, even if this group wanted to present a request to the village board to extend the review period for another 30 days, the board meets September 9th. And then again, the timing is very difficult. It's very compressed.
so, all of what we're trying to do gets caught up in the budget. Gets
The timing.
Time
Yeah.
budgets.
Yeah. I think if it's truly the goal of this commission to study these, get additional information, I don't know the value of getting additional costs to remodel. If the goal is to secure a complete record of the home, then maybe perhaps the owner would participate in that in some way. I just throw that out, or is there some other ways to drill down on the information that may be missing to try to wrap some things up and let this run its course as an alternative?
Mhm. Okay. Well, there's
But
strong.
we can certainly try to, if you want to try to schedule a meeting, we can follow, if you want to continue to have more public comment, more public dialogue on the issue, you may. We can find a date. You can present a motion to achieve that. We might be able to find a date. We may not.
Okay.
I would tell you it's been extremely difficult to find this date.
Well, we have been trying very hard.
And there's 3 meetings going on in Village tonight, so the space is limited as well. So,
We're going to be meeting in the firehouse.
right, or the basement.
Yeah. Okay.
So,
All right, thoughts?
This is a conundrum.
This is an awful place to be. We've never been this badly stuck before, trying to figure out what we're trying to do. This is a very difficult situation to be in. And this is a very significant house. We realize we're taking up a lot of your time and the client's time. There's a strong sense that this is a house that's worthy of being saved. And we would like to see if there's some way that we can perhaps find a pathway to that solution. So. Has your client looked at any of the tax incentives and tax savings that are available for landmarking the house?
We've had no discussion about that.
Okay.
And to be perfectly honest, our main focus has been on the 1 lot, 2 lot issue. Because Mr. Urban had called us in advance of this meeting, and, I'm sorry, Council Mr. Schuster had called me to say, just want to give you a heads up, if the home is demolished, you might not be able to build anything. And that was like, well, wait a minute. So, because having only the 1929 subdivision, they considered it one lot. And there's already one structure, which would be 1750.
Oh, my.
So the concern was, you knock it down and you find out you can't build something.
We wanted to manage expectation and not have any problems that we could address in advance.
That would be a surprise.
Right.
I hadn't thought of that twist.
So that
Okay.
came up 10 days ago, 8 days ago?
Earlier than that, but I think we finally got the deeds, the documentation and support necessary to say that the village's regulations have been satisfied.
And what, I think what happened in the January meeting that I had not been retained was people were saying all the right things,
Couldn't demonstrate it.
but couldn't demonstrate. So for example, Mr. Schuster was saying, you're one lot, because there's only the 1920 subdivision. And Ms. Rice was saying, well, no, we've got 2 deeds, and we were told the whole time, the only way it stays separate is 2 different owners. And Mr. Schuster was saying, that's right, but we only have the one subdivision, so it must be one parcel. And so everything went on in 72, the village had no record of, but we had the records of it. So it's just a question of when Mr. Schuster brought up the possibility of the demo, meaning that it could only be one parcel, that's when we had a very cordial and understanding meeting with Mr. Irvin, Mr. Schuster, and myself, and say, here it is, let us lay out. And and Mr. Schuster back in January said the right thing, because it wasn't subdivided, we have no record of subdivision. All of which is completely accurate, because Robinson didn't subdivide. He just deeded off a portion, but that meets the code. And once Mr. Schuster saw that, he was like, oh, okay, now after all this time, I understand what you're saying, you understood what I was saying, and so we've been completely focused on that, because Mr. O'Donnell knew from the beginning that the seller realtor was like, there are 2 parcels, and, you know, they're both for sale, and the owner wants to sell the 2 owners, because, and, you know, if you're gonna do this, it's 2, and we're selling 2 at one time, and you gotta get this done. And so that's why it's always been 2 parcels. So there's been no discussion about,
So technically you have 2 sellers and 2 buyers.
not technically, in actuality, you have 2 sellers, 2 buyers. And even, you know, one of the things Mr. Schuster early on said, I think Ms. Rice raised the point, well, there's 2 different PIN numbers. And his response was, there's many parcels in Lake Bluff that have 2 PIN numbers.
That constitutes a zoning lot, yes.
Which is absolutely true, but it wasn't, what wasn't being communicated was, I have 2 deeds from 2 different entities,
Yeah.
and that meets the definition of a buildable lot.
There was,
And then there's,
there was an additional wrinkle
right,
that's been corrected by amending the zoning code, is that because this property, in this lot 3, is across the street from a property that's also owned by the same owner, but it's a private lane, not separated by public right-of-way, but it was treated also as one zoning lot under the code, and that was corrected because that was never the intent of the code, and that it didn't just, there's so few private lanes like this in the community that the subdivision code didn't contemplate short acres as it was created, for whatever reason, so we corrected that recently, after the initial meeting.
so
that's,
in effect,
yeah.
1765, 1750, 1776
At first blush, was one lot.
was one zoning lot that just happened to have 3 structures on it. So that, from my perspective, as opposed to Ms. Rice, my perspective has been on trying to get this sorted out to the satisfaction of the village.
So does Mr. O'Donnell own the 1750?
No,
It's not.
no, there's an LLC,
That's right, you said.
but he is the owner of 1765 across the street, which is what Mr. Irwin was saying was,
Right.
until the code was amended by Mr. O'Donnell owning 1765 and 1776, you couldn't do that. And I think you would have had to, again, you would have run into the same problem if you knocked anything down, you couldn't build because you already had one structure on this one giant lot.
So then, is the lot across the street, does that merge with the 1776 lot?
No.
Well, one thing is, there used to be, I don't know if you changed something, but we owned out to the middle of the street at Shore Acres. So your property is actually not at the property line, it goes to the middle of the street. And so if these two were opposite each other, then they were contiguous.
Which made it one lot, under the
Yeah.
code.
Yeah.
That's why it's, because it's a private lane, not a public right of way separating the property.
Wow.
So that's a long-winded way of saying
It was
there
complicated.
there are other issues.
Yeah.
So the question that I'm trying to raise is, if Mr. O'Donnell landmarks this house that we're talking about at 1776, he avails himself of a great many tax incentives and other benefits from the village. Okay? So the village will waive building fees. The village will, by landmarking the house would then qualify for the National Historic Register tax freezing the taxes on.
And that's 8 years, I think.
It's 8 plus 4. Okay, and so if he buys it for $1 million, then the property value stays at $1 million for 8 years, subject to little minor fluctuations, but it stays at $1 million. If he rehabilitates the house and it suddenly becomes worth $2 million, there's a significant tax savings in there as part of that process. And there's some other benefits that come along with that also. So, one of the things in asking for the time extension would be to ask you to convey that information back.
And I will.
And see. Now, when I was on the property, it seems like a month ago now, I went up to the property on my own. John O'Donnell came out and saw me on the property, and we talked for about 10 minutes or so. And I briefly explained that to him, and I got a positive, at least pleasant nodding head response from him on that. So I didn't get a complete rejection from him on that. So I wanted to raise that issue.
And I'll convey that to him. Again, as I mentioned, hasn't been my focus.
Got it. Okay. That brings us back to our painstaking question now. What do we want to do? We want to try and extend this out, try and give ourselves some more time to all of us think about this property. Do we want to try and commit ourselves to a special meeting? Or
I would be in favor of trying to put together a special meeting.
It would be better if that is the case and the consensus to get a date certain.
given our luck in trying to do this before.
Did everybody have the calendars?
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe.
All right, the deadline is the 8th?
The 6th, so that means the week of September 30th would be the final week. Presuming it would be not a weekend meeting. You wouldn't want to do it on the 5th. And frankly, if you don't do it before the 23rd meeting, if there's anything that may, for some reason, if you wanted to ask the board to take any action after that, you need to do it in front of, before the 23rd. So really, you're talking about next week.
So our only dates available to us are the 16th through the 20th.
If you want to maintain the option to ask the board for more to extend, then you need to do that really the last time you would be able to do that would be the 19th. Because the 20th, that would be the last day really to post the agenda to meet 48 hours notice under the Open Meetings Act, to have a resolution in front of the village board for the 23rd meeting.
And on the 19th, I'm in front of Glencoe's village board.
Could we do Monday the 16th?
This puts us in just an impossible position, doesn't it?
It does.
Well, my 18th works.
18th works for me.
And that's a PCZBA meeting, which I cannot attend.
So we don't have enough staff people to attend the meeting?
We are, well, let me think about that. You could do it at 6, and I could be double booked for a period. We have others covering that meeting, but I knowing what's on that agenda.
Well, it would be just this discussion on the agenda. nothing else.
Presumably, yes, right, so if you
Yeah.
want to do a 6 PM start,
Yeah.
if that works for folks. We'd have to do it over here again, likely have to make sure their space is available.
Six PM.
I will be gone the 15th through the 2nd of October, so I'm out. Hopefully Jeff will be back.
I'm not sure, and he's in Ireland, of course, right now, I'm not sure when he's coming back.
I don't believe he's available until the 21st. I can double check, but I don't think he'll be here yet.
So if we're this badly caught,
Yeah.
what happens if we go to the, option on our list, continue with no further discussion, and allow the delay period to elapse without further consideration? Is that an option for us?
It is.
It seems that if we have another meeting that comes up in less than a week's time, nobody is going to have spent much time to move off of their current position. It's a very short time period to gather any further research. I know my questions to the Art Institute, the Berman Ryerson Library take a while. So it seems to me that we are, every different way we try and turn around, try and schedule something, we bump into something else. A shortage of staff, shortage of quorum, shortage of time. I've never been in a predicament like this. If we come back in a week's time, I don't think we can get much in the way of work done. So I don't want to bring Mr. Canning back, and I want to have all of us come together and have a meeting that's completely perfunctory. We sit here and smile at each other, convey the meeting, adjourn the meeting, and we all go home. That seems to be productive.
Is it possible to ask Mr. O'Donnell to landmark the building, but still go ahead with proposed demolition? I know in the past we have landmarked buildings before, right before they've demolition, there's been demolition, but that was back when we could, as a commission, could initiate the landmarking. We can't do that now.
I think we can still landmark, but we decide we choose not to. I think that's
You're correct, sir.
our official position. We can landmark the property on our own, but we choose not to. So, I don't think, well, we'll ask. Would Mr. O'Donnell be willing to
I don't think I'm telling any tales out of school, but I believe when I was on a call with Mr. Schuster and Mr. Irvin, you had mentioned to me about the village board had the ability to extend the time period. So we knew that was one option. But when I read the staff memo, I was thrown off by the December date because I
It
had.
was wrong. Is
I-
that clarified?
No,
Yeah.
no, that's fine. And I was gonna ask for clarification at some point in the address, because in my mind, I had the October date.
Yeah.
So I understood why we had to have the meeting tonight and there was urgency to do that, because in my mind, the clock was ticking.
All right, well, I don't think we're gonna be able to make any further progress in reviewing and analyzing the building, given the timeframes. So, someone like to make a motion on continuation with no further discussion.
With great regret, I move to continue the demolition review of 1776 Schroeder's Drive and allow the delay period to elapse without further consideration.
Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Okay. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Let the clock run. And Drew, can you help us understand when that clock does run?
Till October 6th.
Okay. So,
Yeah, because Sunday carries over till the Monday. But there's no permit, or there's no application other than the letter of intent, so.
And what I certainly, in staff, we can convey, work with Mr. O'Donnell to inform him, so he fully, I know you've already shared, you said you shared with him the details of the various,
just briefly.
the programs that are offered, and maybe that spurs something.
And if you wanted to send that to me,
Yeah.
I have no problem.
And that's well over $100,000 worth of tax benefits and fee waivers and whatnot. So if there's any leeway in recalculating the cost of remodeling the building, personally, I don't think it's going to cost anywhere near close to $2 million to rehabilitate that building. But I'm also not in the construction business, so. So we have a motion, it's been accepted, we've adopted it. I think we are at a point where we've come to a conclusion, painfully. So, thank you for your time, okay? Ms. Rotman, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you guys for your time and all you give to the village.
Yes. We very much appreciate your coming out and giving us your opinion. Thank you for your hard work.
You have another item, sir?
Yes.
Advisory review for a landmark.
So, we have front door and windows replacement.
Yes.
So,
Yeah, this is something the village has budgeted, and it's probably the word to use is long overdue. The village has been working with a consultant who's prepared drawings that are in progress. I think we should have, other than my 17 versions of those, it's replacing and more than number of the quantity of windows. Do you recall, it's 28, 30, somewhere around there.
Some are around.
It's some, not all windows, but really the only remaining historic windows are the original windows are in the old hose drying tower, which is the stairwell. And looking to replace those with something, with a product that looks very, very similar. And replace some other replaced windows that are not performing well, there's some rot around them.
so you realize that having somebody who's in a master's of architectural preservation program, that we do look at windows from time to time. And the student in me has a much different view of replacing original windows. Has the consultant given any weight to the new techniques for rebuilding old windows that are made out of old growth windows? That would be regasketing and weather stripping the windows, replacing the glass with tiles. Cannon, thank you very much for your time this evening.
So, given the timing of this, the architect working with the village on this project is likely across the street at this very moment at the ABR, presenting this, and we're going to try to steal him to answer these questions. That the purpose, he was supposed to run over here when he was done. So, we're trying to be efficient.
Okay.
So if you want to,
There's only a few people that want to get out of here. There seems to be something going on the television this evening.
Just a little something.
I'm sorry.
So, okay. So, waiting for Mr. Architect to arrive. It is quite possible to reach 90 to 95% efficiency by rebuilding original old growth windows rather than replacing them. And so we are, there's a group of us who are trying to spread the education in all of this. We find is that most architects haven't spent much of any time looking at the rebuilding process of the buildings. So,
Well, if we find out quickly if he's unavailable, then we can certainly continue this item.
can you tell me, all of the other windows, replacement windows?
Yes,
Okay, so we're
Windows.
talking about,
just the central tower.
so we're talking about these
They are
windows?
discussing the window replacement right now. So, sorry.
Could you get
Yes.
this, could you get this stacked up tighter on us?
Listen.
No.
Yeah.
Okay. So all of these others replacement windows?
Replaced, they've been replaced.
So why are you replacing replacement windows?
If they have failed and there's rotting, significant rotting,
Okay. One of the things that we're pointing out to people is most of the replacement windows are not worth purchasing.
okay?
Okay, if it costs you $1,000 to replace that window, and 10 years later, you're gonna come back and replace that for another $1,000,
Or more.
you are economically behind the power curve. You did not save enough off of your heating bill and your air conditioning bill to recoup the $100. And now that you're at $1,000, now that you're over the second $1,000, you are never going to recoup that. You would actually be economically better off to have left the building drafty. It seems like an oxymoron, but economically, from a dollars to dollars standpoint.
We're discussing this very agenda item across the street.
In light of letting them have their time and their space, should we just adjourn the meeting and pick this up next time?
I think that'd be totally fine.
Okay.
But we can try to get the question of the analysis of restoration versus replacement.
Okay.
We can dig on that, for sure.
Just one comment on that, because I've been involved with windows for a while, if you will. If a window is rotted out in terms of the frame and things like that, it just makes sense to replace it. In terms of trying to recoup your cost of the window because of heating, I would agree, basically, that's.
Actually, we've found that the window replacement companies, there's a woman down in Bradley, Windows Restoration, who has replaced, she has rebuilt all of the windows at Princeton, Harvard, Yale, and she's now replacing and rebuilding all the windows in the 10-building complex at Ellis, Iowa. So this is someone who knows what she's doing.
Okay, so actually rebuilding
What
windows.
she does is she cuts out old growth lumber. That's lumber that is that existed
Bit more
before,
dense, yeah.
before 1945, essentially, as you do or die date. But if you have windows that predate the war, the wood is of such high quality, and if there's a rot piece, you cut it out, put in a Dutchman, and then rebuild the window, you have a window frame that is better than what comes out of the manufacturer today. So it's quite an interesting technology to see this happening. We have Lake Forest Library as an example. We have Ragdale as an example. And Valencia Club has done the same thing. Lake Forest High School is now installing, they're rebuilding their windows, and they're going to be installing storm windows. And so we keep seeing more and more successes in this area. You have to start with old growth lumber. You can't start with windows that are made out of the farm-raised lumber that we have today. But there is a process, and it does vary time to time.
So once let me try something.
Okay.
We're reviewing the drawings right now. Maybe here, let me go back to the meeting. I don't, you don't have to stay, but we could probably reverse this out and put that, you don't want to do that, it's too complicated.
If you wanted to listen to the AVR meeting, to
That's
get
what I'm
their
saying, we can do
discussion,
that in
and
here.
then you could.
Okay. I think there's a number of my board members that would like to go with this.
Yeah, okay.
So can
Do you have a
I,
date when you want to
can
do
I have a
this?
motion to dismiss?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.
All right.
The answer is we would